Hello and welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here to continue our build on the freight house with this video 19 in the series, so stay tuned. So welcome back to Stu Structures. I am Mark Stewart, your favorite Pharaoh equestrianologist, and we're here to continue our build finally on the freight house. I had to put one more trip into Virginia, which was kind of unexpected, so I kind of held this episode up, and I do apologize for that. I know some of you enjoy having these out there every week, and I kind of got behind. I did throw a filler video in, but you know, a lot of people like the research stuff and some don't. So in any case, we're back to building the freight house, and we got several other projects started, so we've got a lot of build videos coming up in the near future. So let's just see how far we can get on this freight house in this episode, and just jump right into it. Now, the first thing I want to work on is this embankment back here in front of the stone wall. I want to get this done so I don't have to reach across other stuff I'm doing to do this later on. And you can see, you know, in the last video I left it where I just put this brown paint on top of all the plaster area. I don't like for any of that real white plaster to show through if anything should ever happen to the surface. And I had about 10 or 11 different little packets of scenery, phloxes, and various things, dirts and you know, grasses and just tons of things. And I just sprinkled a whole mix of various things across this area. And then I use little tiny pieces of ground foam to add some, you know, things that look like a little bigger plant life than just your basic weeds and stuff along there. And, you know, just give it an unkept look, basically. I come back and add some of these little shrubs along the wall. And this crack in the wall is the one thing that bothers me, where these two different sheets of stone come together. So I'm going to take this real fine thread here, and I'm going to paint the whole end of this brown, and then I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to glue it together to form kind of what looks like maybe the base work for some type of bramble or something that's climbing that stonework. And then I glue it over basically where that crack is in the wall. And once that's glued on and set up, I come back and just add some ground foam foliage to it. And you know, it looks like something's growing up the face of the stone, but it hides that crack and makes it less of an eyesore to me. So it's a much better end result. Now the platforms, I don't have a whole lot of pictures of these. They disappeared fairly early in life, but we're going to come out here and start working on all these platforms now. I do have a couple of drawings. This kind of gives a good footprint of it. The one around the back side of the building had been removed, and the front side, the posts and stuff weren't exactly the way this was originally drawn or intended to be built. And you can see how the posts extend that roof out from the freight house roof to come out over the end of the platform. So we've got those posts out there as well. So I start looking through my box, and I come up with these couple different square pieces of balsa wood here, and I'm going to use these to go ahead and cut all the ground posts, the short ones that are around the edges of the platform. And these, you know, I needed, I think, about 24 of these, and I just got my chopper out, so I had all of them exactly the same size. And then I found this larger square stock to use for the uprights that support the roof. And these are about 10 by 10s in HO scale, but it's what I had. It's probably just a little big, but I go ahead and cut the number of posts that I need for the uprights as well. And then, you know, I just glue everything down, or I put some two-sided tape on top of a board, and you know, go ahead and paint these here in a second. But I also had this wood here, and I'm going to use this for all the side cross members that go under the decking for support as well. And then after I've got all that stuff cut, I go outside and use a rattle can and just, you know, paint it all black. I probably should have just weathered this and did washes and stuff, but I wanted to get some of this done, so I just went ahead and used a rattle can. Now to set up the decking, what I do is just come through and put some of these posts in, really widespread to begin with. I went ahead and marked where all the rest of them will go in, but I just put enough of them in there that I can put the supports on for the time being, and then we'll come back and add the rest of them. So then I start gluing the piece that goes down and meets at ground level on these, and I just use these clips to hold them in place till the glue dries. And I also start putting in some of the upright posts that support the ceiling for the overhang over the deck, and just, you can see I just hold them kind of into place with this tape on top. And then once I get that ground one in place, I mark the center of this because this is too wide of a span for the balsa wood decking to stretch over it. So I need to add a center support in there. But you can see basically the ground level board that wraps around all these posts in place. And then I come back and glue all the rest of those posts into place in the pre-marked areas. So that's another step towards being done. Now for the center support, I'm just going to put in this real thick piece of balsa wood. I cut it to the same height as the rest of the decking, and then come back and glue it into the center. And then I glue also the top rail around the the posts for the decking as well, and start getting it into place. And the other posts that I hadn't put in to support the ceiling over the decking will, I had one last one to glue in there. You see it glued in. Now there's still a few odd small pieces. This center piece down here at this end I still have to glue into place, and there's a couple more posts that have to be glued, but basically that's just about all the supports that I need for the deck. And then once I get that all in, this is just a finished look with all the clamps off and all that. And the top rail board around all these posts I glue just a hair higher than the posts. That way I'm sure that it won't interfere with the decking boards crossing the center. Now I need to come back and cut all the decking boards, and I have this real thick piece of balsa wood here, and I have a bunch of scrap pieces this same size, and I just come back and use a ruler, and I don't measure out individual boards. I use the thickness of the board as the width of the boards I'm cutting, and I just lay a ruler on top and just start slicing slices off the sides of all that, and make all these decking boards, and then pre-paint them black. And then I just use regular white glue and start coming back and gluing them all to the top. I kind of shift boards around a little, make it a little longer than the others, and every time I come to one of these posts, I add these little side boards glued to the post. That way as I add the decking boards, there's something to glue to either side of that post as well. And then as I come to the end of this video, I'm done to this point here. And you just use a square every once in a while, and just make sure you keep these square across, so when you meet in the middle or wherever, you've got a good square all the way down. And I go ahead and I finish this end, so I'm ready to start putting platform boards on this end of the building as well. And just one more thing we're on a roll with. Now I am going to come back and work more on this roofing. I've just been putting this off. I've been really unhappy with using this tape the way I've been using, and I'll explain that more in just a little bit. And I've decided to come back. I have some more of these tiny little LEDs, so I use these Teachy lights and go ahead and prepare some of these to put over the doors underneath the platform area and on one end of the building as well. So there you have another episode of building the freight house. The platforms are coming along really well. I should be able to get at least the basic platforms done. I started with doing the platform underneath that roof because it's going to be easier to do the platform without the roof on it. So that's just sometimes I put the cart before the horse, and this time I didn't, but just a note for everybody out there to be aware of things. Sometimes it's easier to do things in a certain progression because you can make things harder on yourself. I do that from time to time, and sometimes I don't realize what's ahead of me because I make things up as I go along, and you know, sometimes you put yourself in a bad position by doing the wrong things first. But anyway, the decking on this is a whole lot easier to do without that roof, because all those boards, with the way the walls inset around the doors and those brick panels, some boards are longer than others, so you have to individually cut a lot of boards through there instead of just mass producing a lot of boards. So it's just easier to do and see and get into without the roof on that part. So we'll do the roof after the decking is done. But basically all the supports for all that decking are in place. I'm not really happy with the way the roof is turning out. You know, I had said before, I've never tried this method of using the tape the way I am. I've used other tapes and things. This was a real old roll of masking tape. Maybe that's part of the problem, maybe or maybe it's just a cheap roll too. I don't know. I don't remember where I got it or how much it was. I like the texture on it, and that's why I was going to use it, and using Gorilla Glue also to add to it to get it to adhere really well. And you know, it would make a really good cedar shake looking roof. This building did not have a cedar shake roof on it. It had you know, a heavy tile early in life, and then it or slate, I mean, and then it went to you know, shingles later on in its life, past the time period that I kind of model. So anyway, I was looking more for that slate roof look. With the Gorilla Glue holding down what I've already put on to this point, it's going to be really hard to take all that off and replace it with something else. I did find some vinyl that I like, and it really does look more like you know, the slate roof type of materials. I'm going to use it on some other buildings. But anyway, I'm going to continue on with the masking tape on this. This is why you haven't seen so much of the roof getting done. I was really perplexed as to how to handle this and how to proceed forward with it. But I'm just going to go on and use the masking tape and finish it. Once the black paint is on there, it'll all look good, but it really would make a better cedar shake roof. As far as that goes, if people out there are looking for materials to do that kind of thing. Other than that, you know, we got some scenery materials on that back embankment. I would like to maybe later on add some more taller grass and stuff like that in there. But for now, it's a basic, you know, ground cover, and it looks good. So I'm going to leave it as it is for right now. I did come back along the cracks in that paving, and I took some Gorilla Glue, and just everywhere there's cracks and there's, you know, half-cut rocks on either side, I would take a dab of Gorilla Glue and just put a touch to the tops of either of those to bridge that cut where the sheets came together. And yeah, I'd done some once before, and it just didn't quite hide that seam well enough. So I'm coming back and doing more of that, and then I'll just touch up individual blocks of paint as I come through that and hide that a little better. It's definitely making a difference in the way that seam shows up in there. Other than that, you know, we're going to continue on in the next video. Thank you for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it. You know, hopefully you're getting some inspiration out there and wanting to jump out there and build some buildings of your own. We have some smaller builds coming up. No, not all the builds that you may need to do may be this complicated. You just may need simple little sheds or something. And if I was going to start out learning how to scratch build, I would probably start out with simple things like that and work my way up to more complicated buildings. This building, the brickwork had a lot of unique things in it, and the brickwork was kind of complicated, but everything else about this really is not that bad. It's more time consuming than skill level as far as that goes. So anyway, jump out there and scratch build some buildings. Like and share this video. There's a lot of people out there in the hobby world that would like to know some of these techniques and how to do some of this stuff, and are unaware of this type of materials out here for them to learn from. subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon down there next to it, and you'll be notified whenever I have a new video come out. We've got at least one, maybe two more videos in this series, and I have a lot of other small builds coming up that you know, be quick builds, 1 or 2 week builds, just to get some smaller things that I need for the railroad together, and you know, it won't be as long and drawn out as some of these other buildings that I'm doing. We do have some more complicated buildings to get into later on as well. I may start one of those after some of these smaller builds, but I want to get some of those out of the way and get some of that stuff done. I get really bored easy, and I like to work on multiple things at one time, and I kind of bounce back and forth between a lot of different things. I mean, you see my work desk behind me, but most of the time what I work with are, I don't have one setting right here, but I have a bunch of 1 by 12 boards that are cut down to 14, 16-inch lengths. I call them lap boards. And I work a lot in my lap, setting in various areas. And you know, each individual project can set on one of those boards, and I can have tons of those boards, and anytime I get glue drying on one, or I just get bored with it and need to move, I can get another one, set that one aside, get another one, so I can have multiple boards sitting around, even if it's 5 boards working on the same project, because there's a lot of different little things you work on that all come together at the end. So I use lap boards for a lot of things, and of course magnifying glasses because I can't see very well. But that way I can work on a lot of different things at one time, and it keeps me from getting bored, and it gives me things to do while glue's drying or paint's drying, and things like that. So anyway, it's winter time. Jump out there and play with your trains, scratch build some buildings. You know, it's not that complicated, like I said. Just jump out there and do it and learn and hone your craft, and you know, enjoy your trains over the winter, and happy model railroading.